Today we're going to talk about the assessment process to become a foster carer. Now, each local authority and independent fostering agency will do these things slightly differently, I'm sure. So I'm just going to talk about my experience of it and how it was for me, and more specifically I'm going to talk about a workbook that I was given at the very start of the assessment process. So I initially reached out and showed my interest in becoming a foster carer, and there was like little bits of conversation with some people over the phone, and then I was assigned an assessing social worker who ended up coming round a handful of times to talk through basically my whole life and everything, really, to assess whether, you know, they saw me fit as becoming a foster carer. And before all of that started, I was given this workbook that, as we went through the process, this workbook sort of fed into the conversations that I was having when the assessing social worker came round, and it just gave them, my view on it anyway, is that it gave them some knowledge on me, because they have to write like this report thing on you to pass to panel at the end of the assessment process. And so it's a lot. There's a lot in this workbook. With the assessment process, the basic aim of it is to just get a really good understanding of who you are, where you've come from. Just get a big picture of you and your family and people who will potentially be surrounding these foster children. There'll be loads of topics covered, and it will feel quite invasive. I didn't mind, to be honest. It was quite nice talking. I quite liked my social worker, my assessing social worker, and I quite liked just having these chats with them. They made me feel really comfortable. So I would say definitely, if you are about to go through it, don't worry too much. Hopefully you'll have a good assessing social worker that will put you at ease, because that is, you know, part of their job role to do, to put you at ease and make you feel okay to talk about all these really personal things that have gone on in your life. They'll talk about your childhood, your family life, your support network, employment, education, relationships, parenting capacity, basically everything. I had a little search for my emails yesterday, and I found the workbook that I submitted to my assessing, I keep wanting to say supervising, to my assessing social worker, and it's got all of the questions and all of my answers and everything. I won't go into all of my answers, but it might be useful to know what the questions are that they do ask. So the first thing is childhood years. What information can you give us to describe your early childhood? So where were you brought up? Who did you live with? What were your family, parents, carers, brothers, sisters like, and what role did they play? How did you get on with them? Do you recall your childhood as happy or sad? What other feelings do you remember? How has your childhood, in your opinion, contributed to making you the person you are today? It's quite a lot. There's like, and I've written a lot in answer to that. And then to go with that, I had to do like a little, it was called an eco map, with basically, it's like a family tree really of all the people in my life and my family. Then it moves on to school years and education. So please tell us about your time in school and, where applicable, college. Did you enjoy school? And which significant events, friends / relationships with teachers, etc. can you recall? When did you leave school, and what further education did you go on to, or what work did you go on to? What was it like being a teenager for you? What did you like to do? Your friends, activities, family relationships. Did you feel happy or sad? What other kind of feelings did you have at that time? Do you think education is important for children and young people? So there's a lot, it's quite in depth, isn't it? Do you think education is important for children and young people? Do you have a good understanding of the education system? Have you had any experience of working with teachers or children with special educational needs? Have you supported a young person with their education, either your own child or other children? As a foster carer, how will you encourage or advocate assisting children to progress at school? There's an awful lot of questions there about school, your own personal school years, and then how you feel about the schooling system, whether you will be able to support a foster child with their education, their formal education. And then it moves into adult history. So please include your time at work, social life, interests and hobbies. Include your relationship with your parents, carers, brothers, sisters, friends and other family members. What are your relationships with your family like now? Please describe them, including how the relationships have changed. And then something that I had to do was, there was a little table and you had to put important life events. So what would you say is the most important things that have happened in your life and how they affected you? Have you had any difficulties to cope with, and how have you come through these? Please include births, marriages, deaths, loss of significant people, redundancies, health problems, divorce, separation, etc. I think an important thing to remember when you're going through the assessment process is your life doesn't have to have been all sunshines and rainbows. Let's be honest, whose life is all sunshines and rainbows? And it's fine to have had difficulties in your life. We all do. It's more about, they're trying to find out, like, how did you overcome those difficulties? And that's the important part here. So for me, the important life events, I've just put the birth of my son, the death of my father, the death of my mother, and when we went full-time traveling. They were kind of the things in my life that I felt were quite significant and changed me in so many different ways. And then you have to write a little comment on, like, why you've put it as a significant event. So the next thing is a table about income. Obviously they have to make sure that you're not, I don't know, like someone who's not responsible with money. You know, maybe you gamble or I don't know, other things, but they've got to make sure that you've got you don't have to have a lot of money. I didn't have a lot of money at the time, but they just have to make sure that you're all right financially, and they will check your current account, your bank, and they ask, like, what have you got in savings and things. Some people are really funny about money. I couldn't care less what people know about my financial situation, to be honest. It's only money. It's not a big deal. So you have to put in all your incomings and your outgoings. So it asks about employment, any state benefit, mortgage that you pay, rent that you pay, council tax, household expenses, any debt that you have, and then it does ask for, like, current bank statement, what you've got in there, and then any CCJs, and then a total per month of your ins and your outs, which is fine. Like, people find that really weird, but I couldn't care less. Then there's a bit about your marriage or partnership, which I didn't fill in, obviously, but I'm sure many of you will be in a marriage or a partnership. So it does ask, please describe your marriage, partnership, relationship. How and when did you meet, and how long have you been together? If you've been married before or had a previous significant relationship, please say something about this and provide the names of previous significant partners. I didn't actually read this bit. I probably should have put people. I didn't anyway. From your viewpoint, what would you say about the strengths of your relationship? Who is the more dominant, and what do you argue about? What roles do each of you play within the relationship? What do you enjoy sharing together, and what do you do as an individual? When there's a conflict, how do you deal with this, and what do you do to support each other? There's a lot there. So that's all kind of personal background and sort of like relationship stuff, and then it's goes on to sort of more fostering-y type stuff. It's your skills, knowledge, qualities and experience. So it says it will be useful for the assessment. This laptop's heavy. It'll be useful for the assessment before looking at specific skills to reflect upon your general life experiences. This is to gain an understanding of the experiences you have encountered in life, and for you to begin thinking about how you will transfer these skills into becoming a foster carer. Honestly, I found this form really quite interesting personally to do, because it did make me stop and think about how I am going to be as a foster carer. And obviously I've raised my own child, I've been a teacher, I've been a childminder, I've been around children kind of all my working life, and like all my life really. My mum was a childminder when I was growing up, and it's just, I've been around children, I've got a lot of experience, but it was just really interesting to stop and think more specifically about fostering. So it says the examples below are areas we will consider when completing the fostering assessment. It's essential you'll start to think about them. So yeah. So the first question is life experience. For example, getting through difficult times in your life, your awareness of discrimination, any important influences, and so on. For me, this is where it starts to get a little bit difficult. You've got to really start thinking. It's very easy just to sort of, well, again, for me, it was very easy just to write about my past and things. This is when you actually got to start thinking about it. And so for me, I just wrote in here about being a single mum and the challenges that I've faced with that, which there have been many. And then I talked about my younger sister Lara, who is blind. She was born blind, and how I've seen her be discriminated against and various different things surrounding that. So that's what I talked about in that little section. The next bit is understanding the role of a foster carer. So make notes of any experience you have of caring for children. This can include your own children. If you haven't had your own children, don't worry, you can still be a foster carer. It's not a big deal. They just want to know if you do have any experience. And if you haven't, I know I've met someone recently who's a foster carer who openly sort of said they haven't really had much experience with children. They still got approved, so it's okay. So have you ever worked in a role that required you to interact with children? Have you done any work with youth clubs or such like? And what have you gained or learned from these experiences? So for me, it was pretty easy. I've got a lot of experience with children. I just whacked all of that down. Support networks. So as a foster carer, you will need people around you to support you. You really do. You should have already identified people that will be able to provide you with emotional and practical support. Try to think about scenarios that may arise that could help you with each one. So yeah, just that's pretty self-explanatory. Who would you go to support for if you needed practical help with maybe just taking care of a child whilst you did something, or more than that, emotional? Who have you got that you can chat to, because it's difficult at times, and you do definitely need someone that you can sound off to a little bit about it all. And then the next bit is about involving a foster child's birth family. Alongside caring for the children and young people, they will also work with the child's family. It's important for foster carers to help children keep in touch with their brothers and sisters, even if they live a long way away. It may be helpful to consider your feelings around working with a parent you felt had not cared for their child well. This was a difficult one for me, and I remember at the time I didn't really write much in this because I felt just icky about it. And I'll tell you what I wrote, I understand the importance of working with a foster child's family. I know that dealing with a family where there's been certain forms of abuse will be very difficult for me, but I will need to develop strategies to cope with that. And I realise it's not about me, it's about the foster child and their family. That's what I wrote. Moving on, confidentiality. It just, obviously, it's confidential. As a foster carer, it's extremely important that you're aware of what information can be shared with others and what is confidential. Do you have any experience of working with confidential information? Again, pretty self-explanatory. If you do have any experience, you would just let them know about that. Next section is working as part of a team. Foster carers will need to be able to work with other professionals relating to plans for the children and young people. What experience do you have of making plans as part of a team? Note examples highlighting situations to illustrate that you can listen to other people's point of view and express your own opinion. Are you flexible, willing to change your views or plans if the situation changes? Then we were asked to provide some qualities, some qualities that are essential to foster carers. Let me see, what have I written? I've written a caring, understanding nature, resilience to cope with the new challenges thrown at you, definitely, empathy and patience, willingness to adapt to new situations, commitment to ongoing training, good communication and listening skills, ability to give praise and build a child's self-esteem. Yeah, I'll stand by that. Pre-fostering Sarah, yeah, I think you had that right. Then promotion of equality and diversity. Whilst fostering, you will work with both children and adults from a range of backgrounds. Do you understand the importance of being inclusive and treating everyone equally? What about appreciating the difficulties that some people may encounter because of prejudice? Would you recognise discrimination and prejudice, and would you be willing to challenge any unfair treatment? Are you willing to support the children you care for with keeping in touch with their heritage and their identity, even if their culture, beliefs or behaviour are different from your own? So, where's that one? Equality and diversity. Whew. Communication is at the heart of foster care. Do you feel that you'll be able to get your point of view across? Can you negotiate with other professionals as well as build relationships? So that's, obviously just about how you can communicate. Literacy skills. It talks about that we'll have to keep daily records and you've got to understand documentations that you get. have you got a good level of literacy? For this, we had to do like a little typical weekend worksheet, I guess, to make sure that you can do a daily diary. I don't know. But yeah, we just had this little worksheet. We had to just write about what we would do on a typical weekend. I guess that gives more of an insight into your life as well. And then, so understanding health and safety and healthy care. During the assessment, so providing a suitable environment, during the assessment process, a health and safety check will be carried out. Your assessing social worker will undertake this. You can prepare for fostering by contributing to making your home safe for children and recognising any potential hazards and how you can make them safe. My house was pretty fine, to be honest. Fire safety. So it does say on here to phone your fire service, and I did phone the fire service to request that they visit to provide advice in preparation for looking after children. They didn't come round. They said that that's not something that they do anymore. Whether that's still recommended, I don't know. But I did have like when I was a childminder, I had to have a fire safety, like an evacuation thing, and I also had like a little fire extinguisher and just fire stuff in the house. So you need to just be aware of some fire safety. This is page 20 of 24. We're nearly done. And then the next section is understanding children and young people. So understanding development. How knowledgeable are you about child development? Basic, simple. What do you know about child development? Attachment and resilience. So attachment theory provides a positive framework for foster carers to work with children in understanding their behaviour and helping them find ways to overcome attachment difficulties. It's important that foster carers have a good understanding of attachment issues and how the children's past experiences of relationships can impact on other adult relationships. It may mean they find it hard to accept care from adults. Consider whether you could stick with a child despite little outward appreciation from that child. I think attachment and resilience is a really strange thing to me, because I wrote a ton on that, but realistically I didn't have a clue about it until I've dealt with children that definitely have these issues. But you just have to, I think the core of it, just appreciate that they're not just like your own children. If you've got your own children, they're not your own children who have grown up in a safe, secure, loving environment, and they've created these positive, safe, secure bonds with people. That's not where they've come from. They've come from a very different place, and you just have to, it's difficult to do, to be honest. I didn't really know what I was talking about. I don't know what I wrote, but I didn't really know what I was talking about. So the next section, nearly done. Develop yourself. Understanding the impact of fostering. So basically this is just, what is the impact on everyone? Impact on your own children, or on potentially on a new relationship, you with your friends, your family. How will it impact your life? That's the last one, and that is the workbook that I did. That's a lot, wow. That's the workbook that I did before I even, I think it was before I even met my assessing social worker. I did all that work and then emailed it over to him, and that formed the basis of, as I say, our conversations on his couple of visits that he did round to the house. It is a lot, and it can be very, like I say, people can feel very, like it's very intrusive, but obviously we've got to check. We want our foster carers to be good, decent people that should be foster carers, and so all these checks are really important. But I hope that was helpful for you. A lot of you do ask me about the assessment process, and that kind of is just, that's everything they ask you. It's a lot of stuff, there's a lot of information, but that is what they will want to know about when they start assessing you to become a foster carer. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for supporting me on Patreon. I really do appreciate it. It means the world to me. I'll see you soon, either on here or over on YouTube. See you soon. Bye.